Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, so I am professor at the University of Saint-Etienne, and here in Saint-Etienne we have a research laboratory that is dedicated to bioacoustics, so to animal acoustic communication. And we work on a bunch of different animal models. And just as an introduction, I will show you this short video, which is a playback experiment that we did last year with hippos in Mozambique, Maputo National Park. And as most of bioacousticians, and I'm sure many of you are using this tool, we use a lot playback experiment with natural and synthetic signals. And here what you just saw is a playback experiment where we played back the voice of a stranger individual towards this group of hippo, and they reacted a lot. And even the big boss went out of the water, and here you can see it marking his territory in the hippo way, I would say. And yeah, and using this kind of playback experiments in the wild, we can ask questions like, are hippos able to distinguish between familiar, neighbor, or stranger individuals? Okay. So as I think most of you already know, because I'm not very familiar with the audience, but I think most of you are bioacousticians, and you know that the goal of bioacousticians is firstly to understand how animals communicate by sound. And so I would say the theoretical framework where we are all is this chain of information transmission, where you have the emitter individual, and whose job is to code information into the sound signal. Then you have the sound signal by itself, which has to propagate through the environment. And from the emitter to the receiver, you have a decrease of information volume. And as you are familiar with ultrasound, you know that this decrease of information volume is absolutely tremendous with ultrasonic signals. And then you have the receiver at the end of the chain, and the job of the receiver is to decode the information that is coded in the signal. Just to check, everybody can hear me? Everything is right up to now?
Yes, it's fine. It's great.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I won't talk about ultrasonic animals. I will talk really only about about animals communicate in the human hearing range. But I will show you what we are or we have done with different models of animal communication to show you how we can focus on information transmission. And the first example that I will tell you about is this white-browed warbler. So this is a songbird which is living in the Atlantic forest on the Atlantic coast of Brazil. And this bird is a territorial bird. It's a territorial bird. It does mean that the males defend the territory. The diameter of the territory is around 100 meters. And the males, they defend this territory using their song. And this is the song of the white-browed warbler. So this song, I hope you can hear it. This song is a very simple signal. It's a succession of notes from very high pitch one, not very high pitch for ultrasonic professionals, but for birds, for bird researchers, this is quite a high pitch notes. And then these notes, they are decreasing in frequency progressively in time. Okay. And the main issue that this bird has to face, and which is an issue that you ultrasonic guys you have to face with, is sound degradation. Because when you record this song 100 meters away from the emitter, it remains only this. It does mean that, of course, half the high pitch note have been, their energy has been absorbed by the vegetation. So you can easily see that after 100 meters, you have lost half of the song. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but so
yes, we can see it.
Okay, super. So we lost 100 of half of the song because all the energy of the high pitched sounds have been absorbed by the vegetation, and there is only the second half of the song that remains, and even this second half has been profoundly altered by the propagation. You see, it's more difficult. I mean, the sounds are blurred. It's more difficult to see the fine pattern of the frequency modulation, and also there are echoes between the notes, etc., etc. So when we started working with the birds with stereo band, we say, okay, this bird has probably a big issue transmitting information at long range. How can it be possible? How it can deal with this problem? And to tackle this question, we decided to go into the information content of the song. And the first information that we searched for was species identity. As you all know, bird songs, they support the identity of the species. That's why we are able to recognize a robin or a wren from their song. And so the first thing that we did, we recorded several individuals of white-billed warblers and several songs from each individual, and we searched for the common denominator, and we of course found that it was pretty obvious that all the songs of these white-billed warblers, they are always built following this pattern, this frequency modulation pattern. Okay, and so we say, okay, probably that's the way this bird codes for I am a white-billed warbler, for the species identity. To test that, we set up playback experiments in the field. So you have to imagine the situation. Those birds, they defend the territory, so you can assess more or less where is the center between brackets of this territory. You can put your loudspeaker at the center of the territory, and then what we did, we played back natural and synthetic modified songs to test how this bird can transmit information with this song. So the first synthetic song that we play back was that one. We decided to modify the order of the notes. So all the notes have been put at random in this stimulus. So it's still notes from the white-billed warbler, but they are not, we did not respect the syntax, so to say. So we killed this frequency modulation pattern. I have to say that if you do that with other birds, for instance, if you do that with the European wren, if you modify the song of the European wren by putting the notes at random, you still have the territorial response. What is a territorial response? Is when you play back the song, the bird comes to your loudspeaker, sings a lot, attack the loudspeaker, where he is really unhappy with your signal. But when we played back this modified song from our loudspeaker in the center of the territories of those white-billed warblers, we obtain absolutely no behavioral response. It does mean that by doing this modification, we killed the information, we suppressed the information, I am a white-billed warbler. This song is no more recognized as a supporting species identity. But you can tell me, okay, but this is a very rough modification. It's too much, okay? So yeah, we did more subtle modification like this one, where we increased a little bit the slope of the frequency. And when we did that and we tried, we played back those signals from our loudspeaker, we also lost the behavioral answer from the bird. It does mean that this bird is really sensitive to the frequency slope, and it cares about, and does mean that, more importantly, that the information, I am a white-billed warbler, that is coded in the song, is no more there when you increase the slope. We also did the reverse by decreasing the slope. It sounds like a wild wobbler song, but for us, not for them. I mean, they totally stop reacting when you do this kind of modification. So these birds, they are extremely sensitive to this frequency slope. To be absolutely sure that that this slope supports the information I am a wild warbler, we built a pure synthetic tone, this one. And this tone, in this tone, so you see there is no more notes, no more silence. The only thing that we respect in this synthetic signal is the slow frequency modulation of the wild warbler song. And believe me or not, but when we played back this synthetic song from our loudspeaker in the center of the territories of the wild warblers, we got territorial response. It does mean that in this synthetic, very, very simple song, the information I am a wild warbler is coded, is there. Okay. It does not mean that the bird is not able to make the difference between a natural song and this very weird synthetic song. Of course, I mean, birds are acoustic specialists, so they are absolutely able to make the difference. But when you play back for the first time this signal, I mean, the code, the species identity code is there, and the bird reacts. After a few trials, when the bird, sees that there is no competitors, nothing happens, etc., it stops reacting. This is habituation, and of course, it categorizes this synthetic signal as non-significant, and you obtain no more response. But on the first playback, I mean, you get behavioral answers. Okay, that's great. And then we did also another, we tried tons of signals, but we tried this one where we play back only the second half of the song. And obviously, we also got territorial reaction. So it does mean that the second half of the song is sufficient for the birds to get the information, I am a wild warbler, so maybe there is a competitor in my territory. As a conclusion on this species identity information, we can say that it is coded by this slow frequency modulation slope, and the bird does not need the whole song to decode this information. It means that this information is resistant, is coded in a way that is resistant to propagation constraints, and we can call, what, for instance, people like Ole Larsen call it, it's kind of public information. It means that this information will travel at long distance and will be heard and decoded by remote individuals. Is it clear so far?
Yes, it's clear.
Yes, sure.
Okay. Super. Okay, so now we moved to another information which is very, very often, not to say all the time, coded in bird songs. It's the individual identity. So especially in territorial birds, when the birds have to defend territories, the two neighbors, they don't spend all the time physically fighting each other. It would cost a lot of time and energy. And one way of avoiding this situation is to know the voice of your neighbor and to be able to recognize it. And tons of studies have shown that in the songs of songbirds, there is the individual identity information that is coded. So we searched for it in the wild warbler song. Here's two songs from two individuals. So individual A, let's say that it's Peter, and on the right it's Paul, and you see at first glance those two songs appear very, very similar. But now if you zoom on those songs, you can see that there is some irregularities in the frequency slope in the song. And those irregularities is kind of between two notes. You see those steps that can be different from an individual to another one. The interesting thing is that if you record Peter 30 times, you will find 30 times exactly the same irregularity at the same place in its songs. And same story for Paul. So the analysis tells you that yes, there is an individual signature in the song of these birds. But do the birds use it? The only way of knowing it is to ask them the question, so to do playback experiment. Doing those playback experiments is a little bit more tricky. You have to put the loudspeaker at the border between two territories. And let's say that we will test Peter, so you will play back the song of Paul, and you have to wait for a moment where Paul is far away in its territory, so that he will not interfere with the experiment. And then, if you play back from the border of the territory Paul's song to Peter, Peter will not react too much. Maybe you will have a little bit more songs or things like that, but he won't come, and there will not be a very strong territorial reaction. Now, if you play back from the same loudspeaker at the border of the territory a song from a stranger individual, then you will have a strong response from Peter. So the thing that the experiment that we did, we took the song of Paul. I chose a very special song, I would say, because you see the irregularity here, the frequency, the gap between the two notes is quite very big. It's not always the same case, but it's not always the case, but it's just to make things clear. So using our computers, then we modified this song by taking those two notes and making those two notes a little bit higher pitched. So we moved the gap, further in time. So we moved in time the gap, this irregularity of the song. And this is the only modification, the only alteration that we did on Paul's song, on the song of Paul. But when we played back this song to Peter on the border of its territory, we got a very strong territorial response from Peter. And we repeated this experiment several times, and it was always the same story. Each time we modified just the position of this an irregularity of the song of the neighbor, actually we changed the identity of the singer. And the singer is no more recognized as the neighbor. Now it has become a stranger individual, and it has to be attacked. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this was differentiated. Okay. One of the main interesting thing is that in these birds, those irregularities in this song, those irregularities that I told you about, are most of the time they are present in the first half of the song, which is very interesting because after 100 meters, I remind you that this is this first part of the song that has disappeared due to sound propagation constraint and sound absorption. It means that this information that is individual identity, it's a private information. It does not resist to propagation constraints. So with this white-ball warbler, we have this system where we have two static information, two signatures, the species identity, the individual identity, that are combined in the song, but that they are not coded by the same acoustic features. And the species identity is coded by a very resistant, propagation-resistant acoustic feature, while the individual identity is coded by a less resistant acoustic feature that is very susceptible to the alteration caused by sound propagation through the forest. Okay? So the conclusion with this song of the wild warbler is that, as you probably already know, but a signal may bear several but complementary information coded by different acoustic features. Here we have just talked about static information. It does not mean that there is no dynamic information in the song of the warbler. By dynamic, I mean, you know, information like motivation or things like that, but we did not really search for that. And with the song of the wild-billed warbler, we really show that animals, they have to use coding strategy that are adapted to propagation constraints, because this is the way they can send information through sound. Okay, now let's move to another kind of information that can be coded in the acoustic signal. It's the dynamic information and a little bit of vocal repertoire. And to talk to you about that, I choose to move to a totally different model we have been studied during the last 20 years or so, is the crocodiles. So there is not many people studying acoustic communication in crocodilians, but and it's a pity because they are communicating through acoustics. So as you may know, crocodilians, they are quite phylogenetically close to birds. Actually, they belong to the same big archosaur groups. You know, the archosaur, it's the group that where the dinosaurs are. The birds, they are the modern dinosaurs. And the crocodilians, they are very close to the birds. And they share some interesting traits, like, for instance, their brain. So on the bottom, you have a bird brain, which and actually a crocodilian brain, it's an elongated bird brain. It's very, very similar to a bird brain. In terms of behavior, one thing that is very interesting is that the crocodilians, they display parental care. On this picture, what you have, it's a nest. It's the nest of a caiman. I shot this picture in the forest of French Guiana, and it's a nest of the Schneider caiman, so the gray caiman. It's so the female gathers some vegetation, some leaves, and she lays several dozens of eggs. And then, and you can see the egg shells actually, because they hatched already when they have hatched already when I took the picture. And I mean, every crocodilian species make nests. Sometimes it's nests made with vegetation, and sometimes the females dig a hole in the sand and lays her eggs in this hole. Then the females and sometimes the males, it depends on the species, stays close to the nest. So she or they defend the nest against predators. And after 3 months, that's the duration of the incubation. After 3 months, the embryos hatch. And after that, the females and sometimes the males, they take the young, the nestlings, in their mouth, and they bring the mouth to the water. And here you have a picture showing a spectacle caiman. This has been shot in Venezuela. In Brazil. It was in Pantanal. Sorry. So this is a spectacle caiman, and here you can see the little heads of the nestlings. Okay. So this female will stay with the nestlings during a few weeks. Okay, let's go back to acoustic communication. When the eggs hatch, the embryos, the mature embryos, they emit vocalizations like things like this. So hatching calls. And after that, when the young stays stay with the females, during this period, there's also some acoustic communication between the young and the females. So the young, they use contact and distress calls. I will detail this later. And the female, she also can use some vocalizations like this. And those vocalizations, they attract the young. So we decided to So with this, the very first study that we did with crocodilians, we recorded mature eggs. It's not very difficult. I mean, when you have mature eggs, you just have to shake a little bit those eggs, and those eggs they will call actually the kind of hatching calls like And we did playback experiments with these hatching calls. We did two kinds of playback experiments. The first experiments we did it with mature embryos. So we played back actually those hatching calls to eggs, to mature eggs. And the second experiments we play back those calls to females. So we dig the nest, and we placed the eggs by the loudspeaker. We did this experiment in captivity. Okay, and those two, so the first video, this first video shows you a playback of hatching calls on mature embryos, and you see the behavioral answer of this mature embryo. So it gets out of the eggs. This is the playback. The sounds you hear is the playback. It calls also. So actually, those hatching calls, they elicit hatching. They also elicit the digging behavior. So here there is a loudspeaker buried here in the sand, 50 centimeters below the female, and you can clearly see that the females react by digging the nest. And we show in a very recent paper published in Animal Behavior this year that the reaction, the behavioral reaction of the female really depends on the duration of the hatching call sequences. And those sequences have to be actually continuous to elicit a very strong behavior from the female. So to summarize this, actually, those hatching calls, they are signals. It does mean that they support information, because if you play back, white noise, for instance, you elicit absolutely no reaction from the nestlings nor from the mothers. So those hatching calls, they promote hatching synchronization and parental care. Then we moved to the wild, and we went to Guyana in South America to study those communication between mothers and juveniles after when they are in the river. And so we recorded those young black caimans in two very different situations. You know, when you are in the field, you have to do very simple things because usually conditions are difficult. And we recorded those caimans in two situations. The first situation was what we call the undisturbed context. So you have to imagine the situation. I mean, each kilometer along this river, we have a family of black caiman. What is a family? It's a female that stays in the river, and then a group of young, maybe 40, 50 young, that are on the shore or very close to the shore. And to record them in the undisturbed context, we just put a mic and a recorder close to a group of young. And we recorded those juveniles in another situation, which is pictured here. We mimicked a predator attack. It was a gentle predator attack because we just, shaked a little bit the young, so it was not really it was not painful actually for the young, but it was stressful. So we recorded the call that they emitted there. Just a little video to show you the kind of situation. So this is another. It was another field trip, but it was a spectacle caiman, and you see that the females they don't like it. Of course, as soon as they hear the distress calls of their young, they really react. In this specific situation, it was a spectacle caiman, so quite a small crocodilian. But when we did the experiment in Guyana, we work with black caiman, and the females, the length of the females can easily go up to 3 or 4 meters. So it's not exactly the same story. Okay, so what about the acoustics of those calls? So in the undisturbed context, we got this kind of contact calls. Okay, so quite soft calls, not a lot of energy in the high portion of the spectrum, and a very flat frequency modulation. And then when we stressed the young with the predator attack situation, we obtain those calls. Okay, so basically it's the same type of call, but you see there is more energy in the high frequencies, and also the frequency modulation is more pronounced. Okay, but actually it's a graded signal. It's a graded signal. It does mean that the animals, they can go from the extreme here to the extreme here. Okay, so they can go from a contact call to a distress call. It does mean that here they have the mean of coding the amount of stress. Okay, the degree of distress they feel. Okay, when you play back those calls, you obtain. This is another experiment we did in captivity, and we are on the top of a playback, and you see that, of course, they don't like it, and they immediately attack the loudspeaker. Actually, when you emit these distress calls. So to summarize the results, when we play back those contact calls in the field, we got absolutely no behavioral reaction from the mother, which is totally logical, because actually those juveniles, they are emitting contact calls all the time. So our playbacks were just added a little bit more contact calls to the situation, but it was not significant for the female. The juveniles, they reacted to those contact calls by going to the loudspeaker. They were attracted by the contact calls. Okay, so after a few playbacks, they were really surrounding the loudspeaker. When we played back the distress calls, I forgot to tell you that we put the loudspeaker at around 10 meters from the group of the young. When we played back those distress calls, the females, the mother, reacted extremely strongly. So they were attracted by loudspeaker. They swam towards the loudspeaker, bellowing, etc., demonstrating that they were really, really angry. And the juveniles, they had a totally different reaction. They freeze, and they emit themselves distress calls. Okay, so the crocodilians, actually, they have a vocal repertoire. It's not a huge one. It's a graded one, so you can go from one call to another one. And one of the information that is coded in this calls, it's a dynamic information, a condition-related information about the degree of stress that the emitter is experiencing. Okay, now how do static and dynamic information interact? Because we saw with the songs of the white-walled warbler that there is a species identity, individual identity. Now in the croc signals, there is dynamic information, but we can guess that in many animal vocalizations, those two types of information interact. And this is something that we investigated quite recently with puppy whines. In puppy whines, you have different types of information. Actually, you have you have static information, like information about the individual identity, about not the clutch, but the family identity. And you have also information, dynamic information about, the distress level of the puppy, or the hunger level of the puppy, etc. And in this playback experiment, this is the kind of playback experiment that we did with dogs. Here on the left, you have this loudspeaker that is in a black sock. Okay. And here, obviously, the puppies. And you see the mother is really, really interested in the sound. But look at what she is going to do. And you can see the strength of the acoustic stimulus. I mean, it's amazing. There is absolutely no other stimulus, no other. The visual cue is minimal. I mean, it's really, really the acoustics that triggers this behavior. And with this kind of playback experiments, we were able to show that the dog females, they can decode both the static and dynamic information. They are able to know if the pup that is whining from the loudspeaker is one of her pup or first information, and she is also able to guess the level of distress of the pup. So those two static and dynamic information are combined, plus the female is able to decode those information. Okay, still working, still clear?
Yes, everything's working and it's clear.
Yes, sure.
Yes, super. Now, one question that arises is how animals deal with those graded signals that we just show in the crocodiles and that are also present in the puppy ones. I will just show you one very, very small experiment that we did. The results are small, but the experiment was very difficult to do with crocodiles. It's an experiment that we did in captivity. We did go, no go. In our lab, we are working a lot in the wild, but we are also working in the lab, and I think we are the only lab, one of the only labs in the wild to have in the world to have crocodiles in the lab. And this is a go, no go experiment that we did with these Schneider caimans, so babies, obviously. We trained them actually to go to a signal, and it gives this kind of thing. We can train them, so you see clearly this is a directional response, okay? So the frog goes to the loudspeaker. So you have to imagine that it takes months to train a crocodile, a caiman like this, because you know, I don't know if you're familiar with go-no-go experiments, but when you do go-no-go experiments with birds or with mice, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's feasible, because those animals, they are very, very motivated of getting food. And for instance, we did go-no-go experiments with birds in the lab. We are currently doing go-no-go experiments with mice. And you can see those animals, they want to trigger the system thousands of times every day. But the crocodiles, they are not like that, because once they have eaten, when they have eaten once, they can wait for 2 weeks. Okay, so it does mean that it takes ages to train them like that. Well, okay. So let's say that we have trained those crocodiles we are able to train those crocodiles to go to specific sounds. And what we did, we built this kind of stimulus. We chose a frog call. It was not chosen at random. It's because we are also working in a zoo in Morocco with crocodiles, where this frog is very, very common. So we chose this frog call, and we choose a contact call from a caiman, and we artificially built signals that are intermediate between those two different calls. So we built an acoustic continuum actually between the frog call and crocodile call, and we really trained crocodiles to go to the crocodile call, because if they were going to the crocodile call, they got food, okay, in the go-no-go experiments, but they did not get food with the frog call. Okay, sorry, it's reverse. This is the continuum. I will play again. So from the frog to the crocodile. Okay? And that's the result. So the y-axis is the behavioral response of the crocodile. So it's how the crocodiles, go to the loudspeaker. And here it's the percentage of crocodile call. So 100%, it means that it is the crocodile call, 0 is the frog call, and you have all the intermediate. And you can see that there is kind of a categorical boundary where the crocodiles, they decide, okay, before that it's a frog call, I don't have to go. After that, I will have to go. And it's kind of, so they form categories. Okay, now let's move to this question: how vocalizations can help to navigate in a social group. And today, I think it's today you will have the talk by Léo Perrier, who is a former PhD student in our lab, and he will tell you a lot about the African striped mouse and how the mouse can navigate in its social group. But here I will choose another example, not the same scale, because I will tell about the elephant seal. Okay. So we've been working with the northern elephant seal in California since the last 12 years, I think. And those elephant seals, they are seals, but they are big seals, okay? They are absolutely enormous. The males, they weigh several tons. And just a few words about their biology. Those seals, they live in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, just south of Alaska. So they spend most of their time fishing and at sea, just a little bit south of Alaska. But at the reproductive season, many individuals come on the beaches of California and Mexico, and they gather into reproductive colonies. That's a picture of the reproductive colony where we did most of our work. It's in the Año Nuevo Reserve in California, so it's between Santa Cruz and San Francisco. And here you have this elephant seal colony. Okay, the small black individuals, they are the pups of the year. Then you have the females, and then you have the males that are far more bigger than the females. And in the males, you have different categories. The one category is the alpha males. The alpha males, they are the more aggressive males. They make kind of not really territory, but they defend locations on the beach where there are females. So that's why we say that they defend harems, but actually it's not really harems. They defend places on the beach where there are females, and they don't like when other males come and try to copulate with the females, obviously. Then you have the beta males. The beta males, they are adult males. They are very, very similar in their, you cannot see actually any difference in terms of morphology or size between the alpha and the beta, but they don't have the same behavioral strategy. The beta, they are less strong, so they don't try to defend locations on the beach. They try to get access to the females when the alpha is occupied, you know, on one side of its harem. But they are, of course, rejected by the alpha when the alpha sees them. And then you have a third category, which is the peripheral males. Those are usually younger. They don't manage to copulate with females. It's not very clear why they do this thousands kilometers trip to come to the beach. The best hypothesis that we have is that they come to see and to learn because they never have access to females. Okay, well, the first time we went to this beach, we observed males fighting like that. It's not so common, actually. Most of the time, the males, they avoid physically fighting by calling. So you see two males approaching, then one raises its head and starts calling, cluck, 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 like this. And the other one gets away. Okay, well, the first time we observed this behavior, we say, okay, probably in these calls there is some information about the strength of the male, kind of dynamic information. Actually, we searched for that and we did not find it. What we found is that in those calls, you have a very, very reliable individual signature. So here you can see the spectrograms of different males. The two spectrograms for each male has been recorded over 2 different years, 2 consecutive years. And you can see the amazing stability of the vocal signature across years. Okay. And it's very easy to distinguish between males if you are the result of a classification matrix, which is the result of of a classifier based on acoustic features measured on the calls, and you see that the diagonal is very clear. It's very easy to recognize a male from its calls. Actually, the two main acoustic features is the rhythm of those clack clack clack, and also the distribution of the frequency within the calls. So then we did some playback experiments. The playback experiment that we did, the first one, was that we knew before the playback experiments, we knew the hierarchy between the males. It does mean that during weeks and weeks, we have observed the fights and the interactions between the males, and we have noted who was winning over who. And actually, the hierarchy is quite stable. At the beginning of the reproductive season, it's not so stable, but after a few weeks, it becomes quite stable. Yeah, this is something I did not tell you. The elephant seal, they come to the beach around November, the beginning of November, and then they stay until the end of February. And you have two days to remember about the elephant seals, and this is interesting, you know, when you have to discuss with other people during family dinner and Christmas dinners, that you can tell people that, and I'm sure you will remember those information. There are 2 days to remember. The first one is that the peak of birth on the elephant seal colony, it's Christmas Day, okay, December 25. That's the peak of birth. And the peak of copulation, it's Saint Valentine Day, okay? It's 14th of February. So I'm sure you will remember those two dates. Okay, so let's go back to the playback experiments that we did. So we knew the hierarchy of these elephant seals, and we tested intermediate male. It does mean males that are in the middle of the hierarchy, so that we were able to test those males first with the voice of a dominant rival. Does mean a male with which the intermediate males has lost a fight, maybe 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. And we also tested this intermediate male with the voice of a subordinate rival. Let's summarize the results in 2 videos. In the first video, you have these males that we are testing. The loudspeaker is on the right, and the loudspeaker is emitting the call from a dominant male. You have to keep in mind that those animals, they fast during 3 months, so they don't eat, they don't drink, so it costs a lot of energy for them to walk like this and to react like this. And you see this male is clearly frightened by our acoustic stimulus, okay? Because there's no other individuals behind the loudspeaker, and really does not want to go too loud. Now, second video, it's exactly the same individual, the same male, this one, okay? The loudspeaker now is here, and the loudspeaker is going to emit the call from a subordinate individual, an individual that has lost the fight against the tested male there. And you see that it takes far longer for this male to react, because he's no more afraid. He's not afraid. But after a while, he will react, say, okay, now let's stop. So, and you clearly see that he goes to the loudspeaker. He wants to attack the emitter. But then we have something that happens. You see, of course, it does not really see the emitter, the loudspeaker. It thinks that the emitter is this one. But bad luck, this one is a very dominant male that starts calling, as you can see. And so our tested individual realizes that maybe he makes an error, and he retreats. So here in this video, actually, we have 2 experiments in one. The first experiment through the loudspeaker with the voice of a subordinate male, and the second experiment with this dominant male, okay? So you clearly see with those 2 videos, I think that the vocal interaction, they are really the means how those males interact on the beach and how they can avoid, physical fights just using acoustics. We did, of course, many playback experiments with modified signals with these males. And one that we did, as we found that the individual signature is really coded by the rhythm of of the calls, of this clack clack clack, we modified this rhythm, and this is the in a nutshell the result of this experiment. You see that as soon as you modify a little bit the rhythm of the call, you lose the reaction, because those males, when you play back calls from unfamiliar individuals, familiars that they have never heard, actually they don't move, they don't react, because they don't know how to behave. So they just wait and see what happens. Okay, another information about elephants is I told you that you have also younger males, peripheral males, that come every year that come to this beach, and we really don't know why they do this dangerous trip and several thousand trip. You have to realize also that in this Pacific Ocean, just over there, you have tons of big white sharks that are waiting for those elephant seals, etc. So it's very dangerous to travel across those waters. And so we have started investigating the question why those younger males come. And we don't have the answer yet, but we start to understanding, I think, the system. The first thing that we found is that one. Here you have what we can call the social network of those elephant seals. So it does mean that we have monitored the interactions between the males during several weeks. And here each dot is one male, so young males here. Each dot is one male, and the lines between the dots, they show how males have interacted. And you see that this social network is not very complicated. You have not so much interaction between those males. And here on the below, you have an acoustic space, okay, built from acoustic features that we have measured on the calls. And each color is one individual, each dot is one call. And you see that except this individual that had a weird voice, I would say, all the other ones, they have actually very similar voices. And in the field, I can assure you that it's impossible actually to recognize the young individuals by their voice, because their voice is very changing and they are not stable. But then if you move to adult, to full adult, then you see that the network of interactions is far more complicated. One given individual interacts during the breeding season with many other males. And this goes with a very reliable signature, as I already told you. And because here this is another acoustic space, and you see each individual is a different color, and here we are only in two dimensions also. But and you see that it's far more easy to distinguish between the individuals. So you have kind of a correlation between the complexity of the social interactions and the reliability of this individual signature. Okay. Okay, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what's the time. Okay, maybe I will skip it. It was just to tell you that in our lab, we are also working with apes, and Cédric Girard-Butos in our lab just did a very nice study where he found that those apes, they can combine their signals and can be very complicated. But I don't think I will go into details. Don't have time for that. Okay. So yeah, social networks and acoustic communication networks fit together probably. Then I won't speak about the ultrasound world of the African striped mouse, because I don't want to tell you anything about that, because you will have this talk by Léo Perrier, so I will skip that. And I don't know. Should I stop or can I talk a little bit about the application of bioacoustics, or I don't know if it's necessary, as
Yes,
you want.
we've got 50 minutes more, so.
Okay. So I
15 minutes together with questions, so I guess around 10
so
still for you.
Okay. So I will just take 7 minutes for that. Okay. No, it's just to show you that you already, most of you already know all of that, but just to show, I would say, the big picture. Yeah, I don't know if it's your case, but I'm already asked when I give talks to the general public. I'm always asked about what are the applications of bioacoustics. I mean, what's the sense of this? So a part of course, increasing our fundamental knowledge about the world around us. I would say that one of the first application lays on the very foundation of bioacoustics, which is deciphering the information coding processes in the acoustic signals. Because as I showed you, and as probably many of you knows, I mean, those playback experiments with modified signals, they actually allow us to interact with animals using their communication codes. And this can have many applications in terms of scaring or attracting animals. And for instance, in our lab, we had this project where we had to find the call that will repel those big mammals in front of the trains. You know, the trains, when you take a train, you take a risk of, hurting these mammals on your way. And there's plenty of accidents. And actually, it was one of the goals of this PhD thesis. It was to really identify the acoustic features that code for distress and that will elicit this behavior, this fleeing behavior of those animals. So that's one of the things. The other thing, and once again, probably many of you are already aware of that, the vocalizations, they can be indicators of the physiological state of the animals. And I won't go into details. And once again, I think that many rodent studies deal with this question, but in the vocalizations of the animals, you have this dynamic information. And those dynamic information, they vary with the physiological state, with the emotional state, and with the stress level of the animals. And they can be markers of disease, they can be markers of disorders, etc. And this has application in biomedical studies, but it has also application in animal welfare when we raise animals, etc., etc. Another, I would say, field of applied studies is the impact of anthropogenic noise. There is tons of studies around on this topic, and for instance, we recently showed we recently studied the effect of boat noise on the behavior of this coral fish. This fish is a demersal fish, actually, and this fish feeds on the water that surrounds these corals. And as soon as they hear a boat sound, actually, they go into the corals and they stop feeding. So this has huge impact, of course, in terms of their fitness. Okay, and the last thing I will talk a little bit about, it's wildlife monitoring. And so wildlife monitoring does mean that you can use acoustics to monitor animals in the wild. And one possibility is to monitor very species of interest, like this white ptarmigan here. This is a bird that we have been studied and we are currently studying actually in the Alps and in the Pyrenees, because it's a bird that lives at very high altitudes, more than 2.5 thousand meters. And you know, we place these autonomous recorders. We have more than 100 recorders like that in the field. And using the individual signatures that are embedded in the song of these birds, we are able to count the birds, because we can know exactly how many individuals are in this area. And this is very interesting because, of course, you can follow the populations all over the reproductive season. You don't need people to go days after days in the mountain. You just have to set up those recorders once and to get them at the end of the season. Of course, it's not so easy, because then you have, of course, to analyze the data, which can be painful, but still. Okay, the last thing is monitoring soundscape. This is something that is increasing a lot, and you will see that. I think that Leo will tell you that we have used this kind of tool actually to monitor the activity of the communication network in the African striped mouse in the field. It does mean that you put recorders in the field and you get, I mean, all the soundscape, and you can really monitor the activity of animals during the day, during weeks, during months. And this recording, for instance, has been recorded in the French Guiana during the night in the rainforest. And we have we are in the almost we have almost finished a paper on a big acoustic monitoring that we did in this Maputo Special Reserve, Maputo National Park, when we put recorders on different places in this park, in savannas, forests, near ponds, etc. And actually, we found that using ultrasonic frequencies and audible frequencies, we are very able to monitor the dynamics of this ecosystem just using sounds. And this is, for instance, the representation of the acoustic space of 2 days, only 2 days, in this Maputo National Park. And each color is a certain habitats. For instance, blue, it's recorders that were near lakes. Green, it's recorders that were inside forest, etc. And we really assess the dynamics of the soundscapes, and then have a window into the dynamics of the whole ecosystem using this. Okay, I have almost finished. So take home messages. I'm not sure you will really discover the things, but it's just to wrap up things. So animal vocalizations are informative signals. Information can be static or dynamic. Playback is a great tool to get into acoustic communication systems, and I'm sure that you are all convinced that bioacoustics is amazing. And I have 2 last slides. The first one is it's just an information, just to tell you that at the University of Saint-Etienne, we organize 3 different courses actually in acoustics. One is the International Master of Bioacoustics. It's a 4-month course actually at the level of Master 2, so graduate studies from September to December in Saint-Etienne. So there is around 50 international speakers, scientists who come in Saint-Etienne between September to December and teach. And then during the 2nd semester, the students have to do an internship that can be everywhere in the world, but that has to be related to bioacoustics. Obviously, if you are interested, there is a website that you can find from the nslab.com. We also organized the Bioacoustics Winter School. This year, it will be the 10th edition of the Bioacoustics Winter School. This school is a 2-week school, a 2-week course in every January, actually. And we also organize with Danish colleagues. I don't know if you know them. I mean, it's very nice and very amazing scientists that are in Odense. We organize the Tropical Bioacoustic School every 2 years. So the first one was in French Guiana. The second one was last year in French Polynesia. It was really on a marine environment. And the next one will be in 1 year and a half, probably. And we don't really know yet. and thank you for your attention.